Over the past two devlogs, I received a lot of helpful feedback on how to improve my game, Super Guy and Mega Boy. While the overall response has been positive, one recurring critique stood out. The visuals weren't quite up to par. And honestly, that's fair. When I first started this project, I threw together a bunch of placeholder graphics, intending to update them later. I did eventually overhaul much of the environment, but the character sprites have been mostly untouched since day one. Case in point, why is his eye on his cheek? Why does the cape look like it's made of folded cardboard? And why is his head so disproportionately large? So I finally dove into a full character redesign, redrawing each one from scratch at double the original resolution. The result is crisp, clean visuals that hold up even when zoomed in. I use a ruffling flag animation as a reference for the cape, and it looks significantly better now. So far, I've updated Super Guy, Mega Boy, Techno Guy, Wonder Guy, and their civilian forms. It's a big step forward, but even with the new sprites, something felt missing. A few folks suggested adding realistic lighting, which I initially thought wasn't feasible in GameMaker. But after researching some impressive 3D projects built in the engine, I gave it a shot. Unfortunately, my game is built on a much different framework that isn't compatible with such lighting techniques, no matter how I tried reworking it. Then it hit me. I've been aiming for a comic book aesthetic all along, so why not really lean into it? I looked at games that nailed the cartoon style and noticed a common element: outlines. Now, I feel outlines on 3D models can sometimes clash with realistic textures, like in Super Smash Bros. 3DS. But in games with a lot of solid colors like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Ultimate Spider-Man, or Okami, they work beautifully. My game seemed like a perfect candidate. I followed a Dragonite spam tutorial on 3D outlines and implemented them across nearly every model, except for a few stragglers that still need reworking. It took some tweaking to get the outlines looking right, and a few still misbehave, but overall I'm happy with the result. One last visual issue bugged me though: shadows, or rather the lack of them. Characters cast shadows, but objects didn't, which made the world feel flat. Now, realistic shadows weren't an option, so I faked it. Now, any object not touching the ground draws a transparent black surface beneath it. It's not perfect, but it adds some depth. With outlines and shadows in place, the comic book style finally clicked. But now the characters felt visually disconnected. Their line work was thinner than the 3D objects around them. To fix this, I wrote a script that adds a thicker outline to the player, which dynamically adjusts based on the camera zoom. It looks great from a distance, but keeps things clean up close. At this point, I was thrilled with the visual overhaul, until I noticed the game was running painfully slow. Turns out all those enhancements introduced a ton of lag, especially on my 15-year-old PC. Most modern systems probably wouldn't struggle, but I want Super Guy and Mega Boy to run smoothly for everyone. I spent several days debugging and optimizing code. The main culprit was a script that constantly activates and deactivates objects based on the camera view. It's essential for performance, but running it non-stop was too taxing. So I asked myself, does it really need to run constantly? I tested running it half as often, which was better but not enough. Then I tried 1/10 the frequency. That eliminated the lag, but introduced noticeable pop-in at the edges of the camera view. Still, I've seen big budget games with similar issues, so I considered it an acceptable trade-off. But to give players control, I added a graphics options menu. You can adjust how often the map refreshes, toggle outlines and shadows, and even enable a frame skip option to reduce lag, though it makes animations noticeably choppy, so I'd only use it as a last resort. For fun, I also added an optional pixelation filter with a limited color palette, which has no bearing on performance, but it's a nod to the original unreleased Super Guy game from 2005. That wraps up the visual and performance updates. Now let's talk gameplay. Super Guy now has a special meter beneath his health bar. It unlocks later in story mode, but is always available in free play. It slowly refills on its own and allows you to activate Geyser, a giant mech that bursts into existence from a ball of energy. Geyser has its own separate health bar, which corresponds to however full Super Guy's special meter was before activating. And unlike Super Guy, its health doesn't regenerate. So to recharge, you'll need to switch back and refill Super Guy's special meter. Geyser can punch and shield, though there aren't any giant bosses to fight just yet. It can fly, but it's heavy and less agile than Super Guy. Plus, it can't attack or shield while airborne, so players will need to be strategic. When it crashes, it triggers a shockwave, which is currently just cosmetic, but it'll eventually knock back large enemies. Geyser also has a secondary special meter that only refills while shielding. When maxed out, it gains a jittery glow, inspired by Omega Zero from Mega Man ZX, and unlocks the Geyser cannon. Hold the button and... I've always loved those over-the-top finishing moves in mech shows, so the game wouldn't be complete without one. You can deactivate Geyser anytime, which causes it to burst into particles and return to Super Guy. It also auto-deactivates if its health runs out. As a kid watching Power Rangers, I always wondered, why not just use the Megazord from the start and squash all the bad guys like bugs? So in my game, you can. Once unlocked, Geyser can be summoned any time, even during boss fights. It's not ideal for fighting human-sized enemies, but it's there if you want it. Some other updates are, Wonder Guy now uses a sword instead of punching, giving him wider attack range and allowing him to hit more than one enemy at a time. Mega Boy and Wonder Guy can now negate fall damage using a down kick, which triggers a shockwave on impact. The health bar now stays visible at all times to help track Super Guy's special meter. Chapters are now called issues, in keeping with the comic book theme. I've mapped out the next overworld section, Outer Lynxburg, on paper, but haven't built it yet. Lynxburg now has its own theme music. I replaced the old flame animation with a better one I found online. I think it's public domain, but I'll swap it out again if I decide to sell the game. So that's everything from the past 3 months. It's a bit scattered, but all of it was necessary to make Super Guy and Mega Boy the best game it can be. With the holidays coming up, I probably won't have as much time to work on the game, but here's what I'm hoping to tackle next. Redraw and upscale the remaining characters, build Outer Lynxburg, give Wonder Guy his own special meter and ability, add new abilities for Techno Guy, details coming later, and if all goes well, add new issues and bosses before the next devlog. In the meantime, I'll try to post some shorts to keep things active between updates. Oh, and before I forget, I've uploaded a new demo showcasing all the updates mentioned here. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Download link is in the description. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe or whatever, but seriously, play my game please.